3K. Let's do it. Good luck to AGFC. He's our friend. King for off, not a jam. Folding.
Check in.
Could ISO this hand, but anyway. Can bet, sometimes can check, sometimes I'm pretty indifferent. Let's just randomise. Nah, we're not really randomising. Taking an air with a club. We don't want to take too much air. 3's not bad, by the way. It has some future blockers, but let's start with a check. We bricked everything. Now, I'm going to be a real man here and check. Now, why should I check this hand? Why should I bet this hand? I think I will bet, you know. I changed my mind twice. I think not having a club is good for our air. And we're really repping a polar range. And we're just really careful about overdoing it. Probably checking our jack high, 10 high, for example. Having 3 at diamonds is probably good for us. Hey, we got a win. Okay, well, we got ace king. We're going to limp. All right, little 2-4-3 and a limp pot, 3-way. Hello, everybody. This is going to be, I think, an interesting hand when we decide to limp our ace king at the 1Ks, getting into all kinds of interesting spots. So I thought, why doesn't present Tom, aka the guy with all the information, aka the guy who knows the result of the hand, do a live analysis of the hand that you can play along with at home, maybe. Okay, we're back. We're here. We found the hand. Should we limp ace king or not? Probably not. Realistically, can you limp ace king? Sometimes. Should you limp ace king at the 1Ks against 2 regs? It depends. We'll just leave that for another time because I talk a lot about when to button limp, when to button randomize, when to button shove on Twitch. I've bored a lot of you and it's too many factors to really get into the details. Let's run through the hand. So check through, I think so far, pretty standard. Obviously, when we're looking at the big blind check-in range, there's an awful lot of 2-pair type combos. The 2-4-3, 6-5 is probably there at pretty high frequency. Not so much from the small blind. Small blind shouldn't really have too many offsuit 4x, 3x, 2x, or 5x in the range. And so it's definitely a board that favors the big blind here. We then face this bet and we have a decision to make. I think, again, when we analyze the small blind range, as mentioned, not too much 2x, 4x, 3x, 5x in the range, 8x, likewise, not too much there. And also consider it's not just now about the pre-flop range, but also the flop and turn range. And so if you're on the small blind and you've got a hand, let's say you've completed with jack 8 of hearts, very natural complete, you're probably pretty likely to want to probe here at this point. It's hard to check and then check raise or check call. And also 5x, right? If you've completed with, let's say, queen 5 of diamonds, again, pretty natural, I think, for most people to want to probe here. And so I think this is a spot we can very heavily discount the small blind range. Big blind obviously has some strong hands, still 2-pair in the range, every 2-pair pretty much. But there's also some 5x. I think most 5x would probe in this spot. 6x, I think most 6x would probe. Some flush draws as well if they've got a hand like 9-7 of spades. Not really wanting to check, probably going to probe. That was my sort of read on the situation. We decided we'd make this call. Stands to reason that if our ace and king are live, we're getting pretty good odds. They're not always going to be live, of course. And of course, if the 5 is live, that helps as well. And then we'd have something like 10 outs and 20%, but also perhaps some extra EV in terms of occasionally the hand goes check, check, and we win against a hand like king 5, king 6 if they choose not to bluff. That was my decision. So I made the call. 7 of clubs comes, everything bricks, and we face a jam here. And then this is the real decision point of the hand. So let's go to our old friend, Mr. Flopzilla. Okay, so you're joining us here. This is the big blind pre-flop range I've plugged in. It's an estimate because we're in uncertain territory and no one really has an idea what the exact theoretical ranges should look like in a 3-way limp pot. But there's some ideas and there's some sort of metrics you can grab. And so it's kind of cool to play around with this. One of the reasons I like button limping is because of the uncertainty, trying to embrace that. Let's talk about AGFC, the player that we're playing against. Very, very, very good player. It's been at the high stakes for a very long time. He's a friend of mine. Certainly someone that I think could be capable of bluffing in this spot. Let's put it like that. So we give them, we've made an assumption that most gut shots are probing. May not always be the case. For example, it may not be the gut shots with a pair. Don't make too much sense. So we take some of those away. It doesn't really make sense perhaps to probe 6-2, 6-3. Maybe not, but we'll leave 6-4 in and I've left 4x plus in just as a reference point. With our ace king, you see that we have 40.5% equity. Given the price we need on the turn, we needed a price of 30%. So you see, if this range is accurate, we're making a profitable call in terms of the equity, assuming we realize all our equity against their turn sizing. So the river is the 7 of clubs. We face a 16 BB 1.5x pot overbet shove. This means we need 37% equity to make a profitable call. Now let's try and assess what we think the range is that would shove. And so let's say to start with, let's kind of use some basic ideas and say it's unlikely perhaps that a 7x shoves. If they have 7-5, let's say that's going to check. It may not, but let's start with that. Let's make an assumption that a 3x of spades or a 4x is also going to check. And let's say top pair plus goes for a bet. Okay, so we'll start with that. Now, if that's the case, you see that we have 48% equity against that range, and we should always call. However, we just got all or nothing betting. We can probably verify this a bit more. So we don't expect king 5, king 6 to bluff. So let's take those out. Maybe let's take away queen 10, queen 9, just as a starting point. See how that affects it. 43%, we're still happy, we're still calling. You can then say, well, maybe queen highs don't go for it. So we'll take away the queen 5. So our friend Joe bets AGFC, bets queen 5 of hearts, and then gives up the bluff on the river in a spot where we're pretty capped, and we could have an 8x, but just decides I'm going to give up because whatever. And then if that was the case, we still have, let's say, just about a break-even call in that case. This will assume, of course, that they're probing and barreling every 8x as well. It's not always the case, right? If you have 8-5, 8-6, you might not go for the 1.5x river bet after betting into 2 players. That's kind of could be considered quite thin, perhaps. 8-5 blocks a straight, 8-6 blocks a straight, perhaps. Those are incentives to go for it. But these are just obviously little extra things to think about. If we take away some of the missed flush draws, those are typically hands that are easy to not bluff, for example. Our equity now starts dropping, and now we're getting into the territory of where we're perhaps making a minus EV call, although it's close. Should we call ace-king here or not? Well, let's have a little think about how our range looks. Now, we have some 8x perhaps, but do we have much else in our range? Well, we have some ace-king, we're going to have some ace-queen, ace-jack, ace-10, stuff like that. Those hands are going to be a worse call. Why would they be a worse call than ace-king? Well, if you think of the fact that having ace-10, we heavily interfere with, or we at least interfere with bluffs that are legitimately there. 10-5, 10-6, 10-6, 10-5. We're not having a debate in terms of, we could have a debate, but we're not going to today, about whether 10-5 is actually going to be in that bet and probe range. If we change this king to a 10, you see our equity just dropped. And this is a really important coaching point. This equity shift. A lot of people talk about blockers without, I think, fully comprehending the actual impact of the blockers. But here, you see ace versus 34% equity has 36% equity. So given the same bluffing range and value range. So you see, there's a good example of why if we had, let's say, queen jack or something, yes, we still beat all bluffs kind of thing. But you see that queen jack has way worse equity, even though the kind of nothing is the same, assuming we take out king 10, king 9, compared to ace king, because of the fact that it blocks more bluffs. Doesn't really impact the value too much. Should we call ace king or not? It just depends on our opponent's range and how they perceive it. I made a decision here to call. And so, in our infinite wisdom, we put all of the analysis together, and we decided, you know what? I'm not going to fold here. I'm going to take the ace-king. We're going to take our limp. We're going to take our showdown. It's a lot of EV, isn't it? It's a lot of equity. What a plus EV call we've decided that it's going to be. AGFC can't have a value. He can't. Because surely he's bluffing his gut shot. Surely. Was Joe AGFC bluffing? No, he had 6-8. So, was ace-king call good? I don't know. It depends. Didn't feel great at the time. I will be honest. But I think you can't win if you fold, and that's why you should always call. It's not really why you should always call. That was a fake coaching point, but I hope that was interesting. But well played to AGFC for turning up with a 6-8, one of the thinner value bets, but pretty reasonable, you'd say. Kind of in game, I had the thought of like, I'll call ace-king, I'll fold ace-jack, I'll fold ace-10. I'm happy folding ace-jack, ace-10 here. Am I happy calling ace-king? Still unclear. That's why if you think, God, Texas Tomo, what a donk. That doesn't seem like a very good play at the 1Ks. You might be right. But you might be wrong. If he turned up with 9-5, oof, I'd look like a genius. But he turned up with 9-6, I'd look like a genius. He had 8-6, I look like a complete donk. And I am a donk, but that's okay. It's okay to be a donk. All right. Thanks very much, all. Back to you in the studio, old Texas Tomo.
We're sending you back to the future.
Now, what are we doing here? I love the limp pots. They're so... I don't know what to do, huh? There is some 2x, certainly in both ranges. 5, especially in the big blind. 5-2, 4-2, king 2. King 2 suited probably in this range as well, which are really trying to target. There's some 2 pair as well, of course. I think against this we just fold now. It's really interesting though, because like this is the absolute best we could possibly have. But it's so natural to have a flush here. Who's that? Juggernaut. We folded. What would you bluff with there? That's my question. What one heart combo with a pair do you turn into a bluff? Expecting us to fold? Nah, it's a flush. We're folding. AGFC is probably less likely, has more air perhaps, although there's still some missed flush draws and stuff for hand like 3-5 suited or something. Goes to the jam, reps the 2x basically. Has the house. Has the house. Joey. AGFC with a house. Now, of course, we're going for a dynamic ISO, which means we're going to ISO first hand. Shock Serenche Tash. Voldemort, my friend, how are you? We're calling. Good luck, good luck. I reckon ace 8 off. King queen, close, close. Let's hit an ace. Let's hit an ace. As suggested, hit an ace. What a loser with king queen. Yeah, I mean it's just a call, isn't it? But 8-7 of clubs. One of those. That was one of those. King. 9. There's $1,000. That's how you do it. You just get it in behind and hit.